Welcome back to my channel of an everyday life under an Aspie. If you're following me and you're new to my channel, I'm Aspie. I'm all about creating mental health and awareness, sharing my life stories with you all, and hopefully that we can gain a better understanding and knowledge and know-how about me, and maybe some of the warning signs and symptoms of some of those everyday personal health conditions or anything of that matter that I share with you all. So it has been brought to my attention that I'm trying to tidy up as much as I can of the series of the narcissist versus psychopath and sociopathic kind of series. So I humbly apologise in advance if you guys don't want to listen to it, but I feel in my heart to address these because obviously some of it hasn't been clearly addressed, I feel, and I want to share my life experiences. This is just maybe my advice for you all that I may be experiencing this as well. So this one's basically, as you may see in the title, should we forgive the narcissist? Basically that question obviously will be running around people's mind every day, all day, when they go through the trauma of this narcissist. There are choices in life that we can make in our life for the good and the bad, right? So for the choices we make, there will always be consequences or repercussions to those choices we make. Here's some examples to gain better understanding. Some people opt out for courts and struggle for a sense of justice. There is a novel but arduous road. Ultimately, it is a judicial crapshoot. You have one lawyer playing against another, unpredictable juries, and the participation in the original perpetrator, who's usually far from remorseful and to whom you are tied for the duration of the proceedings. Sometimes it is hugely successful, other times it is painful beyond words. Some people take the road of least resistance, avoidance and amnesia. I can understand this. It can honestly seem a very safe place to be, and unfortunately it usually ends up in quite the opposite way, because it is a trance of sorts. While some people call this letting go, it is not. It is numbing. We ignore the wound, but it can affect us and how we receive and participate in all other relationships from that point of injury forward. Some people will refuse of all the above and instead rest in their familiarity of active anger and resentment. Maybe one woman, if they're faced in this, I know, shouldn't give up their anger if their life depended on it. And basically, their answer maybe is because it feeds me or fuels me. Some people want to forgive but not forget. This pays not roll over but forgive. But what does this actually mean? From a Christian biblical perspective, this forgive and forget quote isn't found in the Bible, but there are numerous verses commanding us to forgive one another, however. Examples are Matthew 6 verse 14, Ephesians 4:32. A Christian who isn't willing to forgive others will find his fellowship with God hindered, Matthew 6:15, and can then reap the bitterness and loss of their rewards, Hebrews 12:14-15, or 2 John 1:8 clearly states this. Forgiveness is a decision of the will. Since God commands us to forgive, we must make a conscious choice to obey God and forgive. The offender may not desire forgiveness and may not even change, but that doesn't negate others' desires that we possess a forgiving spirit, Matthew 5 verse 44. Ideally, the offender will seek reconciliation. If not, the one wronged can still make a decision to forgive. Of course, it's possible to truly forget sins that have been committed against us. We can't selectively delete every event from our memory, however. The Bible states that God doesn't remember our wickedness, Hebrews 8:12, but God is still all-knowing. God remembers what we have sinned and fallen short of God's glory. But being forgiven, we are personally or judicially justified. Heaven is ours, and as if our sin has never occurred. If we belong to Him, faith in Christ doesn't condemn us from our sins. In that sense, God forgives and forgets. If by forgive and forget means I choose to forgive the offender for the sake of Christ and move on with my life, then this is a wise and godly course of action. As much as possible, we should forget what is behind and strive forward what is ahead. Philippians 3:13 states this. We should forgive each other just as in Christ God forgave us, Ephesians 4 verse 32. We must not allow a root of bitterness to spring up in our hearts, Hebrews 12:15. So excuse me for trying to read some of the memory verses. I'm just trying to clearly state how it was before I state my opinion in here. However, if by forgive and forget one means I will act as if the sin had never occurred and lived as if I don't remember it, then we can run into trouble. For example, a rape victim can choose to forgive the rapist, but that doesn't mean she should act as if that sin has never happened. Spend time alone with the rapist, especially if he is unrepentant, isn't what the scripture teaches. Forgiveness involves not holding a sin against a person any longer, but forgiveness is different from trust. It is wise to take precautions, and sometimes the dynamics of our relationship will have to change. Obviously, basically, also just to bear in mind though, in the context of keeping company with unrepentant sinners, we must be innocent, willing to forgive, yet at the same time shrewd, be cautious. Okay, I mentioned about the forgive and forget and stuff under the playlists of forgiveness, so if you want, I'll link this to this video so you can understand more what I'm talking about. Defining the term of forgiveness. The word forgiveness has been used interchangeably with the word appeasement for many reasons, the least of which is accuracy, and the greatest of which our spiritual survival, that is the grave mistake. From what I have seen in the past and present, some service in understanding, clarifying their earnest notion that forgiveness shouldn't ever be equated with appeasement or confused with unearned trust. They aren't only equal, but they're actually opposites. How we forgive as well as when and why we ought to offer forgiveness are fundamentally important psychologically and spiritually. Forgiveness and appeasement must both be very clearly defined. Forgiveness is letting go of hatred, resentment, and pointless, pervasive, and paralyzing fear. It doesn't mean that we must be foolishly fearless or naive, however. It doesn't mean that we should stop protecting ourselves or deny what is truly dangerous around us. It doesn't mean that we ignore the obvious or trust what is intrinsically untrustworthy. It doesn't mean that we relinquish our God-given capacities for discernment and good judgment. When evil comes knocking on our door, we should lock the door. Forgiveness isn't banal. It is never another word for niceness. Appeasement, on the other hand, is defined is often paraphrased as benevolence, but it isn't actually cowardice. A derivative of a particular form of fear that is so consuming, so pervasive, and pathological that is flatly denied. When we appease, we essentially give up rational fear, even though we may truly need it. We think that being nice or giving the bully what he or she wants, he or she will stop being the bully. Appeasement doesn't prevent that behaviour, it perpetrates and encourages it. That is foolishness. Forgiving is not excusing or denial, just to bear in mind. In my personal belief system, that there are things that our right-mindedness and spiritual maturity calls us to do and not do, right, by our everyday choices of what we do, good or bad. And I want to state up front that a great deal of my own thinking, based on my life experiences, basically takes effect on these matters that has been influenced by what I've been reading by C.S. Lewis, who gave us quite a bit to digest on the issue of forgiveness. I find that when I think I am asking God to forgive me, I am often asking Him to do something quite different. I'm asking Him not to forgive me, but to excuse me in my wrongdoings and actually let it go. But there is also the difference in the world between forgiving and excusing. Forgiveness says, yes, you have done this thing, but I accept your apology. I'll never hold it against you, and everything between us will be exactly as it was before. But excusing says, however, on the other hand, I see that you couldn't help it or didn't mean it. You weren't really to blame. If one wasn't really to blame, then there is nothing to forgive. If we could forget this, we shall go away imagining that we have repented and been forgiven, when all that has really happened is that we have satisfied ourselves with our own personal excuses. Real forgiveness between two parties, as Lewis so rightly points out, doesn't mean pretending the hurt hasn't occurred and doesn't require that we look away from the wrongdoings. Forgiveness, on the other hand, is even God's forgiveness, which is infinite, starts with the steady gaze at the wrongdoing itself. To forgive entails an acknowledgement of the hurt, and then when there is contrition and repentance, a reconciliation. As Lewis reminds us again and again, true forgiveness demands that we look at the dead squealing, seeing it in all its horror, after which we are able to extend compassion and be reconciled with the person, but not with the deed. The deed and its all underpinnings must be shared for good. It is this understanding of forgiveness that makes it possible to fight enemy without hating them. Forgiveness isn't codependence. It is imperative to say that there has been some contrition and an effort to change negative behaviour in order for forgiveness to be wholeheartedly given for reconciliation, one person to person or nation to nation to take into place. Father Russell Radioch, an Orthodox priest in Butte, Montana, clarifies it in this way: consider the difference between I'm sorry and please forgive me. One is a proclamation and the other is a supplication. One involves I, one involves other. One is prideful and arrogant, almost a runt, the other is humble and contrite. There is no doubt that he is right, and that we must be savvy through and clear-minded enough to know the difference so that we aren't manipulated into putting ourselves in harm's way. I have never heard of a narcissist or sociopath sincerely say, forgive me. However, while a full reconciliation may depend on repentance, our forgiveness doesn't. In fact, we can forgive a person who is quite ill and committed to a path of destruction using words we have heard before. Forgive them, for they know what they do. Putting ourselves in harm's way is another matter. Here's another example of C.S. Lewis to give you a better understanding. What he wrote in his essay of the Cardinal Virtues: the fact that you are giving money to a charity doesn't mean that you need to try to find out whether that charity is fraud or not. One may forgive the thief but put locks on doors, while one may forgive one's enemy but be prepared to do battle in the event of an attack. One may set firm limits with one's child and still provide unconditional love. A case in point. Forgiveness is so hard for some people that it seems impossible. Finally, fighting the enemy. We are asked to love our enemies. We don't hear much about this in the media, but it is what we are asked to do. Yet if we look at it in this biblical history, it is filled to the brim with some of the bloodiest battles in history. How is that possible? How can we command to forgive, to love, and to show mercy while being simultaneously called upon to protect oneself and one's family, to be intolerant of evil when it manifests before us, even to the point of killing? This is the crux of the matter. Because if we can understand this, we can see deceptions where they exist and sidestep in the inevitable disappointments of personal appeasement. The truth is that evil can never appease. Appeasement only postponed. The price we pay is not mitigated, but it is multiplied. I see a couple of steps to answering this. The first one, that being well, one belief system may in fact better than the other, e.g. honouring women as opposed to brutalising them. Ultimately, we are no different from the enemies we are fighting. We are all humans and are imperfect. Accepting our humanity and our imperfect natures puts the conflict and the inevitable combat in an entirely different context. No one gets out of this sinless life. Forgiving is not only hard to do but impossible when we think of forgiveness as parting or forgetting or failing to correct our wrongdoings. When we remember that all we need is forgiveness, even if we believe that we are fighting rightly, it is far easier to forgive those with whom we are engaged in battle. The other point that C.S. Lewis made is, and I shall close with this, is that while we may kill to protect ourselves, we may not enjoy it. We may not hate. We may enjoy hating. We may pick up swords and fight evil, but we may not fight it by becoming evil ourselves. He covers in this essay forgiveness. In other words, something inside us, the feeling of resentment, the feeling that wants to get on one's back, must be simply killed. First things first, we must deal with the enemy, and before I've lost my place again, sorry guys. The other point, blah blah blah. In other words, inside us, the feeling he wants to get on by simply be killed. First thing first, we must deal with the enemy before we can deal rightly with the enemy facing us. Actually, the best way to feel better is the opposite of getting revenge. Saying the words "I forgive you" could be the most powerful thing you'll ever do. To forgive doesn't mean to give in. It means just to let go. Once you forgive, you are no longer emotionally handcuffed to that person that has hurt you. Forgiveness extricates you from someone else's nightmare and allows you to live in a state of grace. If forgiveness feels so good, why do so many people lug around so much resentment? One reason is that it may compensate for the powerlessness that they experienced when they were hurt. People may feel more in charge when they are filled with anger, but forgiving instills a much greater sense of power. A rabbi who lost his family in the Holocaust said that he forgave because he chose not to bring Hitler with him to America. When you forgive, you reclaim your power to choose. It doesn't matter whether someone deserves forgiveness, you deserve to be free from peace and harm and everything else. Another reason we may withhold forgiveness is it can feel like the weakness or capitulation. Some think forgiving means they were wrong and someone else was right, but forgiveness isn't about letting the other person off the hook. It's about pulling the knife out of your own gut. It can free the ex-wife who remains bitter towards the former spouse. The worker passed over for promotion, the relative not invited to a wedding. It means that you are letting them go and forgetting what they've done towards you, so that you can move on forward with your life. In many cases, the other person isn't very aware of your misery. While you are turning yourself inside out with bitterness, the one who hurt you doesn't feel a thing. Forgiving is good for the body as well as for the soul. Reliving past hurts over and over again is bad for your health. Simply remembering an incident that made a person angry has proved to be stressful for the heart. Negative feelings that cause stress have also been linked to high blood pressure, coronary artery disease, and increasingly subsequently to other illnesses. While several hurts may take only minutes to inflict, forgiving the perpetrator often requires some time. Initially, you experience negative feelings such as anger, sadness, and shame. Then you try to make sense of what happened, or take mitigating circumstances into your own account. Ultimately, you learn to see the person who hurt you through new eyes with greater perspective. The hurter becomes one who was flawed, weak, sick, or ignorant. Some people never reach the final stages of forgiveness. Those hurt in childhood by people who they loved and trusted may find the process particularly difficult, yet even partial forgiveness can be beneficial. If you want to move forward toward a future of forgiving but don't know how to start, here's some suggestions I clearly suggest for you. Practice on small hurts. Forgiving the slights inflicted by strangers, the clerk who shortchanged you, or the driver who cut you off in your way of the road when you know you were about to cross over, prepares you for the tougher task of forgiving major hurts. Free yourself of bad feelings. Vent your anger or disappointment with a shift of funeral counsellor. This allows you the strengthening experience of being hurt. You can let go of your feelings without danger of saying or doing anything unless you regret later. Anger releasing strategies such as punching and pulling may help, as well as also maybe if you're not much angry as sad, keep a journal by you. By all means, avoid negative expressions of anger such as driving recklessly, slamming doors, or breaking things that was of value. Another one, number 2, write a letter to the person who has hurt you. Spell out the truth of what happened as you experienced it, without blaming or judging, using I statements. I feel, I don't understand. Describe the impact of the person's behaviour had on you and express your desire to be heard of his or her feelings and get that issue resolved quick, smart. Should you mail it? If there is a chance for good, send it. If the person who caused you hurt is dead, however, and capable to listening to what you have to say, some counsellors suggest burning the letter as a symbolic way of letting go of the anger in open smoke. Don't feel confrontation is necessary. In cases of the incest, assault, or any other criminal acts, victims may avoid forgiving the perpetrator because the confrontation isn't safe. In fact, you need not face that person at all. Forgiveness can occur without anyone else's involvement or awareness. People you forgive may never realize they wronged you or never know you forgave them. They may be alcoholics who cannot hear what you are trying to say. They may deny everything. What is important is that you let go of the anger. Meditate or pray. To is whom and to forgive divine. Turn to spirituality or faith. That for forgiving maybe more than any of us come in and join our own. Don't think forgiving means forgetting. It doesn't. We can't forget hurts, nor should we. Those experiences teach us not to be victimised again and not victimising others. Look forward in time. By peering into the future, you can benefit from the perspective time brings without having to wait years to achieve it. Consider the 2 sisters who bickered over the care of their ailing mother. The sister living close by resented being burdened with her mom's day-to-day care, while the distant sister just sent checks. Finally, the angry sister asked herself what she really wanted in the long run. Her answer was, I want to have a good relationship with my sister. The only I could do was to let go of my anger and forgive her. The only thing I could do, it should be. Today, they can just without exchanging hurtful words, and the distant sister is more willing to telephone doctors and participate in decision making. Forgiveness leads to inner peace, however. Once you have forgiven, you will laugh more, feel more deeply, become more connected to others, and the good feelings you will pave the way to even greater healing for yourself. Well, this basically ends a quick should we forgive the narcissist part. Thanks for watching. Give me a like or a thumbs up, comment below. Feel free to follow me on my social media sites. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so. Feel free to also basically turn on the notification bell so you know what's going on. Not further ado, guys, thanks for support, thanks for watching. Until next time, Aspie signing out. I'll see you all again soon. To say no.